I guess the reason it's an issue is because there are countries around the world that would prefer that it had not been done. It's a no-brainer. It's the right thing to do. President Trump made the right decision. He stepped up and did it. It's inevitable that there'll be some criticism about it, but I just can't imagine any country in the world that doesn't believe that they have the right to have their capital where they want it.
Here's some of the criticism that you mentioned. Put up the full screen. Egypt says it would complicate Middle East matters. Jordan says potentially dangerous repercussions. Palestinians say dangerous consequences. Saudi Arabia, our ally in the region, detrimental to the peace process. Turkey says it threatens to sever its ties with Israel. So the pressure being ramped up both in the Middle East and in elite circles here in Washington.
And in Europe.
And in Europe. Merkel says it's bad. Theresa May says it's bad. The Pope weighed in saying we should keep the status quo. Is President Trump out there the man alone on this?
No, there are a lot of people who recognize that it's a rational thing to do, and it's the right thing to do, in my view. And I think most of those countries will get over it. I think they probably have constituencies that feel that they don't want Israel to be a part of that world. And the vast majority of the people in the world feel differently. They do agree that Israel has a right to exist and that it should be a part of that region, and that countries are inevitably going to decide where they want their capital.
Well, the point is they think that Trump is losing the bargaining chip. And to that I said, well, we've been trying that with the bargaining chip, and it hasn't really gone that well.
No, I agree. I think it's not surprising to me that all the countries you mentioned have an understandable need to vent modestly, but it'll go away.
What about if something happens, more terrorism, attacks on embassies? Do you see a blowback on President Trump? Like, you provoked this, you pushed this, you pushed it when you didn't need to, you're a wrecking ball, Mr. Chaos. That's the line from the American media, many in the American media today, that this is just more Trump chaos.
Well, I don't see it that way at all. It seems to me that the president made the right decision. He stepped up and did it. It's inevitable that there'll be people who don't like it and will make noise about it. But the idea that it would lead to a stream of terrorism, I just don't see that at all.
I had Bill Richardson on the show last night, former UN ambassador, and he says he goes all over Europe and he hears very interesting things about the president. Let's watch.
I go overseas all the time. You know what they ask me, Laura? They say, why is President Trump leaving
growing the American economy?
Why is he negative on the Trans-Pacific Partnership?
Because it kills American jobs.
Why does he want to pull out of NATO? Internationally, I travel all the time.
Bill,
we are getting
the European elites
criticized by everybody.
The president's not popular, Mr. Secretary. He's not a popular leader. And Obama was the rock star. Clinton was the rock star. And now we have this guy Trump and Richardson and company, the elites here. It's ruining our image around the world.
Well, that's just not true. The idea that the behavior or the conduct or the decisions or the positions being taken by the President of the United States are ruining our image around the world, I think is a massive overstatement. The reality is that the American people made a conscious decision to put in the presidency of the United States someone who had never served in government, military or civilian. I would have to search through history to see if there's ever been a president who had never served in government. Now, why did they do that? They did that because they wanted someone who'd never served in government. And that's what we've got. He does not behave like an establishment politician. And that is hard for establishment politicians and establishment media to accept, because it's not the normal behavior of a seasoned politician who's the president.
Is part of it that these elites, both in media and in politics, were so taken off guard and so embarrassed by the win of Trump? Because he took them on personally, he took them on substantively, he shattered all the perceptions of how you have to run a campaign. They were all left flat-footed.
Yeah, and no one thought he'd win also. I mean, that's embarrassing. But the American people decided they wanted to roll the dice and put someone in that office who came from a different approach, with a different approach, and they got one. And I was with a very active Democrat today, a wonderful classmate of mine from school, and very much a Democrat. And I said, well, what do you think about all this? He said, well, he hasn't done anything wrong. And he hasn't. He said, what do you think? And I said, well, the most important job of a senior executive is picking good people. And he has picked excellent people. The Supreme Court Justice Gorsuch, the Vice President Mattis at Defense, his cabinet is as good a cabinet as any one of the 2 or 3 I served in. And it seems to me that he's picking very good people, sensible, sound, thoughtful people.
Parallels between the treatment of Reagan and the treatment of Trump in the media and by the elites, especially the European elites. I was in college. I remember Ronnie Reagan and he's going to blow up the world, the no nukes movement. It was a big push against Reagan. He was going to blow up the world.
Exactly. And he was, the society, the elites in the society were dismissive of Reagan and didn't believe a movie actor and Bedtime with Bonzo could do the job. And he got in there, and that wonderful, warm, sensible approach that he brought to governance won over an awful lot of people in our country, and he did a fine job.
The elites never accepted him until he was long gone. Now suddenly Reagan's their hero, but they don't like him much when he was in there.